to a very special episode on the Bearfoot Miniatures channel. I'm joined today by superstar of the gaming industry, Tuomas Pirinen. Hey, Tuomas, did I say that right? Or because I know on the other podcast that I've done, maybe I've butchered it horribly.
Yeah, it's the Finnish is impossible. If you are not born to it, it's unintelligible garble. So don't worry about it. Everybody calls me.
Right. Okay. So Tuomas is the lead designer of the gaming of Trench Crusade, as well as doing some absolutely fantastic games in the past that you might have seen on the channel, both Fantasy Sixth and Mordheim. Like that's what stands out to me. But Tuomas, do you want to give us a brief introduction of essentially some of the big hits of what you have done and from like way back in the past, I suppose, up to now that might have informed and be relevant for what Trench Crusade is and is doing?
Yeah. So on a very quickly, since I'm very very old, is the I will go through the career. So on the tabletop, obviously I'm best known for my work, the work on Warhammer at Games Workshop and now Trench Crusade. But I did tons of army books. It's the Dogs of War, High Elves, the I did a campaign packs like Circle of Blood. Uh, I'm obviously well known for the Mordheim and the Warhammer Fantasy Battle 6th edition, and now I am the designer and 95% of the time the law writer of Trench Crusade, working with Mike from China. But I've also worked years and years and years in the video game industry in the on titles. Just to give a couple of examples: Need for Speed and Resident Evil. Um, so the I've been around the block a lot. It's the and somehow still standing. And right now it's the I'm focusing all my design efforts to this new kid on the block, Trench Crusade, which is against all odds has become a quite a significant indie game. I'm still astounded that the on paper it is a game like you list what it's about. Okay, let's use real world history, real world religions, including it's the ones that the nobody wants to even mention. It's the let's go really grim dark. Let's do M-rated game. These are all ingredients in a recipe for disaster and no sales, but somehow it didn't work that way. It's the our Kickstarter campaign. It's the is about to hit 5.7 million. Is the any moment now, but also since the STLs are now available on my mini factory, it keeps going, but far more impressively, the online and offline community just growing at an astounding speed. I think we'll be hit 75,000 on the Facebook group alone, which is for an unreleased indie skirmish tabletop game. I don't really have a comparison point. It is rather unusual.
Yeah, he's seems to be a real like capturing lightning in a bottle moment, which I have stolen the somebody Phil said it the other day, so I like bam, there you go, Phil. You inspired my little anecdote there. But yeah, he's a real like lightning in a bottle moment. Like I know at least seeing from my end the sort of success that it's had, it's more than doubled in the sort of like month and a half that a game has been on the channel any of the views of anything else. So it does have, I think, these cross streams that have sort of reached into a lot of communities where, say, someone that might be interested in fantasy settings, it really pulls them in, as well as I'm going to say science fantasy rather than science fiction,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the more science fantasy elements that have come in. Now, is there anything for like you mentioned like Warhammer Fantasy, obviously a battle game, as well as like obviously working on Mordheim. How did those sort of, or even if there's anything from the video game industry of say like the pace of the game,
Mm.
how did any of those inform sort of how you started looking at Trench Crusade?
Yeah, I mean, video game industry, of course, since the Trench Crusade originally was created as a visual world, is by Mike from China, who of course is extremely famous concept artist, is working on such little games like Diablo. Uh, so of course the video game influence is there without a question. Rules wise, uh, I mean there is strong influence from Mordheim. Is there's the campaign system, diving charges, it's the scale, the warband structure, the division between heroes and the troopers, uh, and the mind-numbing detail of being able to equip your troops as you wish. So influences are strong, but I would say that a lot of water has flown under the bridge since I did Mordheim.
Mm.
Um, and since I'm not constrained by the Warhammer 5th edition rules like I was with Mordheim, constrained is the wrong word. I mean, at that point, making a Warhammer skirmish game and not using the current rules would be idiotic. I mean,
Yeah.
it would make no sense for the project. But of course, I had no path like this, so I could innovate quite a lot with the rules themselves. So very strong influence both from my time at Games Workshop and very strong influence from both Mike and Mike's careers at the video games. But I do think that the amalgamation of all these influences, and above all, Mike and my real fascination with real history and the like a iconography, religious and otherwise. I think this is the sort of the heady mix where the Trench Crusade came out of.
So with the like the iconography and even like some of you say you did like 95% of the lore or whatever number it is, the was that based on just like plucking things from your past or like how obviously not like the devil spawn coming out of a demon gate in Jerusalem, but was that something that you like sort of picked up from research, or was there always this like formulation that it might be a good setting? And how did that start to develop?
Yeah. So initially there was like Mike had done like the very first idea that the gate of hell is open in Jerusalem and started the war 800 years ago that still goes on today. So we get this mixture of the medieval knights and the World War One. That was Mike's, and it was there from the beginning. I started the very first thing I wrote, because once I looked at Mike's art, because I see a lot of cool art, but most of it is very disjointed and there is no like consistency. And
Mm.
why I was attracted to this was I looked at it that Mike's actually shares my passion of the attention to detail, the internal logic of the game world. Not obviously, it's not a logical game
Mm.
because it's science fantasy, and but that the it's coherent within itself. Like there's a vision and
Yeah.
there's a thought put behind what the weapons are and what the armor looks like. I knew I could work on this. So the very first thing I wrote was a timeline. Um, so and that's I used really as the backbone of it. And I've taken an approach more sort of that there's this world and I have these pictures from Mike and I'm imagining myself in the Great War of the Trench Crusade looking around. And then I think, what do I see? So I am taking this sort of that I am a traveler in this world who is then describing what he sees rather than an architect. Yeah, yeah. Or rather not architect, but a visitor. So I don't know what I'm gonna find. So you all are on this trip of discovery with me, and I'm just telling you what I see and then turning it into playable rules. So I tried to get this was something that how Tolkien approached Middle Earth as well. That there's a very interesting one where he describes meeting Faramir, who was not supposed to be in the book, but he
Mm.
just said that I met him in Ithilien and I really like him, but I didn't think of him. I mean, of course he did think of him, but he allowed this world breathe life to a character that really suits it well. And this is the kind of approach I've tried to take. So not trying to have too many constraints on who I could encounter. Yes, I have a understanding of the timeline, of the major events, of the world, of the map, of the major players. It's but not the details, not the exciting new things you can
Mm.
discover. There's still a lot of mysteries in the world that are mysteries to me as well.
Is that something that you want to sort of plow back into things that you've already written? So, say in that, I'm assuming the timeline that you've got is either an expanded version or just the full version that's in the lore primer. is that something that you want to go into detail of in the future, what is already there? Or is that something that you want to keep mysterious and simply flesh out more detail of things that aren't already in that timeline?
Half and half. For example, when the rule books comes out, there will be plenty of added events on the timeline, like when was the invasion of Ireland. Uh,
Mm.
the there is a on the map there will be quite a big revelations tomorrow. There's a one very interesting one coming out. Um, so I will keep some secrets. Some will be revealed, and some I don't think will ever be truly answered. Like I know the fans really like the line is the city of Argos is taken
Yeah,
by God and it's no more. And I kind of think it is best because part of the Trench Crusade universe is that we do not want to say that the spirituality and the like this religious truth, we are not going to declare what is right and wrong.
mm.
We have lots of players from different faiths, or some without faith, and we want everybody to be able to craft a warband that they can enjoy to run. Also, we are not missionaries. I mean, I'm not a priest. I'm not a mufti. I am not a rabbi. I'm not here to convert anybody, but I do want to offer a world where people, whatever their background is they can come and go, okay, this is cool. I can build something for myself that I'm really excited about and I'm passionate about.
Yeah, well, I think at the moment it certainly speaks to both people that have just an interest in history from a secular place of like these events happened, but also that might see references. So say like I was C of E, not like non-practicing now, but obviously see aspects that I recognise from my grand taking me to church growing up, and I think it's a real. It sort of not ties you to the place, or maybe it does, but it it gives you something recognizable that is sort of a fun aspect to play off
Yeah.
within that setting.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, Western, the cultural literary tradition, it cannot be understood without Christianity. It's the like it's impossible. English language, the King James Bible influence on it is beyond profound.
Mm.
Uh, just like the Middle Eastern culture that the Iron Sultanate represents, it's the you can't really you if you just take the like the fashion aspect of it, you rip out the underpinnings of it. It's the so in some ways the feeling of authenticity comes that you recognize the icons, the symbols, the language, the words, the names, and they have meaning because they have meaning in our own world. And I think that is one of the aspects that the appeals to people. And you're totally right. I mean, we are huge history nerds, and the Mike is a huge also World War I arms and weaponry
Mm.
nerd. So the people have that delight when they recognize where they like the boarding axe of the heretic naval raiders that we just did the art of, and
Yeah,
the people recognize it is from the U.S. Marine, the First World War boarding axe. So the people, that's cool. They can see that we do our research.
yeah, yeah. So is that something that tied into like I know this is veering onto like game mechanics thing, but is that something that tied into how you see the warbands operating within the game, or was that sort of something layered on separately? Because I suppose like House of Wisdom with how they operate changing weapon effects ties into that like centers of learning within Eastern culture at that time. But is there any other sort of nuggets that may be missed that you sort of thought about designing the factions?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like one of the keywords is gas, which is of course a if the one thing people remember about the World War I is the poison gas. Of course, it was this terrifying weapon, which is kind of sci-fi even to us because we no longer use it. It's
Mm.
the like the so that's a one thing that's where the history influences it heavily. I obviously studied each one of the war bands has at least some underpinning in the real world history, some stronger, like the Prussians are very much tied to the First World War Germanic stormtroopers.
Mm.
It's the and use the same tactics, same weaponry, because you can build a very interesting warband out of it. And also, it is such a tired cliche that the Germans are always can only be bad guys. It's quite interesting in the that we could make them actually part of the Faithful Alliance here. So you don't just do the same thing over and over again. Because in the First World War, it was just a one massive clusterfuck of the it would be very hard to say who was purely good or evil. It's the and the aspect was different, at least was about conquest. There is a obviously you look at this Iron Sultanate, the Jessails are very iconic.
Mm.
So obviously modern rifles might be more effective, but that's why the alchemy comes in, because we wanted to maintain the homage to the handcraft and beauty of the of those weapons and their unique look, and I think they make it the woman much more distinctive and enjoyable to paint and play and to collect. And I could give them a very different gameplay effects. Uh, and then some things are like the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent is heavily influenced by the medieval art, how they saw hell, uh, how they depicted it.
Mm.
So all of these carry a some root in history or the history of the art or military history, but they all come from a place that where we have a rich well to draw upon.
Yeah. So for this, maybe is more a beginner's like sort of question, but I think it's key to get to the root of it, of understanding how like each of the factions work. Like, how would you say each of those factions have been designed? Like, I know from the you've included historical influences, but how do you see them differing from each other in gameplay instances?
Oh yeah, each one of the main factions and also quite larger sub factions has a very strong like a gameplay style that I had in mind, that the what kind of gameplay style it really shines if you
Mm.
choose warband. There is of course quite a bit of leeway of building the warbands differently, but in general, New Antioch, it's all about combined arms. They do not have the kind of same kind of a just massive one punching power that some of the other warbands have. But on the flip side, it's the if you play the fire teams well, if you manipulate the turn order well, if you use your very varied troop types and weaponry well, then you will bring down your enemies by working together with your models rather than here is my super powerful beast I send forward
Yeah.
to kill everybody. Heretic Legion is a classic elite force, but the elite force of individuals. So you have very high performing units, you have devastating artillery, you have fast moving units, you have a very good melee units, good shooters, but expensive. Um, so, and there is limited number of synergy between the troops, which I think suits the heretics who are looking for individual glory. So the question is very much more that the I have this band of powerful individuals, and the how do I overwhelm my enemy with my qualitative superiority rather than a necessarily working together. Uh, the Black Rail, classic zombie force, slow, durable, and with the mechanic that is always is in the zombie movies, which is the spread of the disease, but which is missing from games, and that's why the infection dice are there. That if you leave them alone, is your
Mm.
opponents keep getting worse and worse. Their situation gets worse and worse. Um, so I wanted to reflect that the spread of the disease when you're fighting against the this sort of undead. Uh, the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent is a it's a classic like monstrous force. It's there are the lords who are very very powerful, and then there are the pitiful slaves with a unique twist that they can use any human suffering, including their own followers. They can use their suffering to power their magic, which also builds on the world of Trench Crusade. Iron Sultanate I really like because it has troops for any situation, including like very heavy hitters, very heavy artillery, uh, but it does not have the how would I say? it does not lean super heavily in any one of them. You can be
Mm.
pretty damn good on any area, but you will never match Praetor in one-to-one melee combat, and you will never match the combined arms of the Antioch with your troops. But you have a tool for every single situation. They are the jack of all trades warband.
Mm.
Um, and the Trench Pilgrims, classic rush force, a little armor, but surprising amount of durability. In your face, really ridiculous, limited but ridiculous and powerful missile weapons to soften the enemy, and then the huge rush to overwhelm them. Um, like a very, very sort of, I hate to say it, but orcish kind
Yeah.
of force. That overwhelms you, and lots of like the um, immunity to fear. So a lot of interesting things is in their favor. And are we missing any of the major warbands? I think I went through all
No, yeah,
six.
I think that's all of the prime factions. Like, I've actually there is a slight ulterior motive in asking
Mm,
the question because I know, like, previously you said like you've got a love of witch hunters in
yeah.
Mordheim, so
Mm,
I wanted to root out if you drop any hints as to which one you liked, and I'm sure,
mm,
say like my friend Phil, the a different Phil, will be absolutely ecstatic that you've mentioned Sultanate since that's one he's picked up.
mm,
But is there any? So we've got those main factions, and we
mm,
you've mentioned that, say, the heretic naval force
mm.
has just got some artwork with the axe. Is that something that is being worked on more to make it into a more fleshed out faction? Like, after, I know you've got like a timeline with your campaign
Mm,
supplements that shows us like to the end of this year,
mm.
but is that something that will be those smaller factions expanded from there,
Yeah.
or are they going to just be artworks that are representative?
I mean, they already have their own rules, which are, of course, more limited. But just like with Prussians, we'd like to expand the heretic naval riders a bit more because we really like them. I have to be careful because the naval riders are actually quite a potent warband already. Uh, so checks and balances, you can't just add eternally to one subfaction.
Mm.
The Lord give, the Lord taketh away. So you have to take this account. But yes, I would like to do more with the naval raiders. As you might have seen, we added to the Prussians the tank buster swords
Mm.
to their armory. So, but we do have to be a little bit careful that you never want to end up with that you either play this faction or you're stupid, which
Yeah,
is not good.
yeah. Well, I think it's something that's like up to now been achieved
Mm,
quite well. I think the how the dice system of always being, say, essentially on a seven sort of
mm,
plays into that quite nicely. That it both I think is it allows averages to work, but
mm,
also you get crazy spikes in rolls that sort of levels it in a, like, I know, like, say, Mordheim
mm.
is like brilliant game, but now is, I think, is very spiky,
Yeah,
and sort of shows its age in a lovable sense, but in, I think, is Trench Crusade is not is appearing much more obviously a modern game,
yeah.
and is sort of smoother in that way, even in terms of balance, and that is created through that sort of that manipulating number of dice system as
Yeah. I
opposed to.
mean, yeah, the problem always was with the Monheim that when you are playing with a 1d6, you have 16% steps. That's a very, very rough cut. The progression. The nice thing about 2d6 is that the uh, 6, 7, 8, you cover a huge number of possibilities. So the bell curve is strong. So averages tend to, like, you can somewhat plan that the probabilities are heavily in your favor that the you roll average rolls rather
Mm.
than huge spikes. But it does happen sometimes, which leads into funny things happening, like the you roll your artillery witch, and then you roll snake eyes, and then it lands on the top of your heretic priest. The kills it is it's funny, at least for your opponent. It's funny.
Yeah.
So the spikes happen. They are just not that common. While in the classic Warhammer system, because of the way the system is, they are much more common. It also is, but on purpose, is because I use dice pool system. You don't have to do heads in math. Only thing you need to see, how many dice do I need to roll, and see, did I get a 2 sevens, or if you're crit hunting, did I get if I did get 7 or more, did I get 2 sixes or more? So there is very little mathematics you need to do. It only really affects the injury roll. And since the turn order is free, like I always not didn't hate, but I find it very restrictive that you have to take um, some sabotage.
Sorry.
Yeah, that you have to take everything in a strict order, which leads very samey kind of turns. So your ability to improvise and be creative with your action economy is what I liked. I don't like action points, again, because you have to do maths. So that's why I did the system as I did it in Trench Crusade. So yeah, I'd say there are some fair few of the how would I say, modern uh, alterations, but yet I kept the very detailed loadout building, because a lot of games have now gone into preset sets. But then I really wanted to support converting and the stanzing and alt miniatures. It's the making your warband really your own.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's something that is a massive draw to a lot of people, and not only just like from a modeling perspective, painting perspective, and making your warband your own, but the amount of people that spend ages just thinking of what their character or like for their elites or even their entire warband is going to look like, and then like putting that into practice, I think is it's an important part of it to have those choices available. And as soon as you get into game, they're then sort of mellowed out and there's not as many complications. As soon as you've got your character sheet printed out, it's it's done for you. So the ability to teach someone the game, I think, is really helped by and not hindered by having a simple system that, yes, it might have the complication like sort of behind the scenes, but then if you just want to turn up, right, provide your friend with a character sheet, here it is, you need to roll sevens, mate. It's like really good. And then on the spiking, it's something that it gives those memorable moments within games. I think it's the games that everyone remembers are the ones where something ridiculous has happened, and to have it, if it happens 1 in 6 times, it's not that out there and not that
Yeah.
memorable. But as you say, with the bell curve, when it's happening 1 in whatever chances the ends are, they then are
1
like,
in 36. 1 in
yeah,
36. So you are bound to have at least one incredible moment per game. Because you easily roll 36 times. But it doesn't mean that you're just swinging all over the place from one extreme to other every turn, and that is very much by design, because it's important you hit the nail on the head. Complexity is not same as depth. A game system can be quite straightforward, but it can also be deep. It's a lot more difficult to design it then, because the depth comes from the interaction, is the how well you build the troop synergies, is and so on and so forth. But having a easy to pick up but difficult to master game is what we game designers always aim for.
yeah. So we've got like depth pre-game. Now you
Mm,
mentioned the campaign system is
mm,
something you wanted to
mm,
like bring over and sort of like you'd start obviously worked on that in Mordheim.
mm,
What is it that you wanted to achieve with a campaign system, and the one that you've currently released, is
mm.
that going to be representative of the campaign systems that you do in future, or is that sort of just the I don't want to insult it by saying like the stock campaign, but is that the sort of like the most raw campaign, and
Yeah,
then you'll do completely different types? Or...
yeah. No, the one that comes with the rule book. This is the what you're playtesting. I would say it's 75% done. This is meant to be lightweight and easy to pick up, and the start and the finish, and everything is in the book.
Hmm.
And that is meant to be just like the Mordheim's campaign system. It's meant to be the the first experience, of course. A lot of people are now being trained to play just one-off games.
Yeah,
So the campaign in the Trench Crusade is meant to be something that isn't too intimidating. Because I love Axis Analyze, for example, and yeah, it's a board game, well, not miniature game, but man, it's not an easy to approach game. So the campaign system in the Trench Crusade is meant to be something that you approach and you go, yeah, I understand what's going on. Doesn't seem like it'll kill me, so I'll give it a go.
mm.
While the campaign pack that's coming at the end of this year is much closer to the maybe like the old campaign packs I did for Games Workshop, like the Circle of Blood and the Tears of Isha. But it will include a map which you are sort of conquering and moving around rather than just using tables. Because I love maps, and I think there's something very satisfying moving the pins of your warband is the exploring the no man's land.
Yeah, yeah. Like the ability to see like a visual representation, it immerses you into the world so much that I think it's near vital to providing that, as you were saying at the start, like the visitor feeling into the world.
Mm.
The like because I'd seen you'd done the Mordheim map a few. Was that only a few years ago that you
Yeah,
added
just
the?
a few.
Yeah, and because that like kicked us back off into Mordheim, like
Yeah.
having that sort of placed way to see our war bands like sort of fight across.
Mm.
Now, will that be like a painting the map your color, or are you imagining it like an exploration map that you sort of move across?
Yeah, it's more of an exploration map. It's of course in a limited area on the within Arcus front.
Mm,
Uh, that the you sort of explore and discover it's the hidden things in there and the sort of gain foothold and push the enemies back. Uh, it's a much more of a how would I say a something where I want to have a lot of replayability because in Mordheim obviously Mordheim is Mordheim the
mm,
city. I couldn't just start changing like the edges of the city because the map that Nuala did wonderful map is the true presentation.
yeah,
So which is actually based on a 3D model I built originally when there was no map. Anyway, um, so the but this one I want to have more replayability and more reasons to go back and say there's lots of places I didn't discover yet, so I want to have another go, and hopefully we can do others. It's the course while obviously the thematically the no man's land, the trenches and the mud is like the most iconic.
mm,
The Trench Crusades Great War is global war, and it actually touches a lot of places. There is the invasion of the Ethiopia. There is the battles against the Iron Wall. There is the push from Rijeka into the Hardland. There is the battles because the heretics have Gibraltar. The
mm.
heretic naval raiding forces. You could do a nice little French village protected by a local garrison and the defending against the heretic raiders. There's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, is that sort of like the future? Sort of how you're going to add to the game is through campaign packs, or do you plan on sort of like dropping sort of article length pieces like into future, or how do you see sort of moving forward with how you engage in that sort of way?
Yeah. Well, we already have like a ton of stuff that the just the variant warbands we could be doing miniatures till Kingdom Come. Uh, so, but what I would really like to do, I'd like to do expansion pack. It's the obviously I have to finish
Mm,
the map-based campaign because A, I want to do it, and B, we promised our backers, and we are not going to go back on our word. Um, but I would like to do another number of like really warbands that we really wanted to do for the initial game, but the just there was no way we were gonna get the miniatures sculpted on time. But yeah, it's the Church of Metamorphosis, Path of the Beast, the Hebrew Knights, the Crusader Knights are all something that we are really itching to get our hands on. So we would like to expand it in the maybe a little bit like the say games like Necromunda was expanded. It's the with Outlanders, is the having a sort of a expanding the scope of the world. And I think the world of the Trench Crusade and the lore we build would support all sorts of things. It's the including in the distant future maybe other games.
So you've mentioned being like a obviously a really into history. I wanted to say a student of history, but you didn't actually say that. But so you've mentioned that. How is it that you largely consume historical knowledge? And is there anything that you would recommend to everyone? Oh, go out and read this because it's the best book. And it doesn't even have to be related to Trench Crusade because it all informs thinking, right?
Yeah, I mean, books. I am a voracious reader, so read a lot of books, and I really there are of course the classics, the Fall of Roman Empire, whatnot. It's the but really the more you read, the more well-rounded you get. I also do recommend that there are some very good historical video creators nowadays. That if reading is not your main thing, you can still absorb tons of really high quality material. You need to find ones that are, because there are also plenty that are very haphazard and not well researched. So you need to sort of look around a bit.
Mm.
The museums, you should absolutely, it's the visit, the travel in general, and the maybe be a little bit of brave and go to places that maybe not everybody goes. For example, I really want to now go to Ethiopia because now I've read everything about the Great Battle of Adwa. Did you know that of all the African nations, Ethiopia was never colonized because the Italians did send a modern army in 1898, and 1898, and everybody thought, yeah, just like the Western army is going to wipe them out, and then the King of Kings, the of the Solomonic throne comes and they just wipes them out in the Battle of Adwa. And man, and we never hear about this. There are all the like the in the Trench Crusade lore. There is the chapel in the sky. I didn't invent that. That's a real place.
Yeah.
It is the highest place of worship in the world, and there's just this tiny path with no guardrails. It's the leading to it. There is obviously they claim that since their dynasty is the claim, say this direct descendancy from King Solomon, is they claim that the Ark of the Covenant is held in their Basilica of Saint Mary. So I want to see all these places, the churches that they've dug into the rock down into the earth rather than building them up.
Yeah.
There is all this stuff that I think a lot of the history. I think a lot of the education system doesn't make history as sexy as it is in the real life. So going and experiencing it yourself is a much more satisfying. It's but yeah, honestly, I could rattle such a number of books that it would lose all meaning. Maybe I should do a reading list sometime.
Yeah, I think it'd be just interesting to see what, because our sort of like thought sphere of everything will just be informing what you have created, obviously, but it would just be interesting to see and pick up on those little hints that may have been dropped, even how you've written things and what has informed those pieces of lore that might just come out in the wash of, like, if you do a reading list or something like that. I do think it'd be really interesting, sort of look into the mind of Trench Crusade and just the background of that.
Yeah. Mike should do one as well. He also does an incredible amount of research. Like when people like they ask you, notice that on the Lion of Jabir it has the Star of Solomon, and then people started asking that why does it have a Jewish Hebrew symbol, and but this is exactly because it's taken from Jabir's own alchemical scrolls. It's the and of course for them it's the Solomon was one of the great prophets. It's there is his symbol has no actually within their tradition. It's just one of the holy symbols, which is fascinating. But everybody, uh, not everybody knows historical context. It's about all the amulets you see, all the symbolism, the weapons. Is the Mike does a almost. I use it flippantly, but sort of autistic amount of research is the. Sorry, I'm not taking any autistic person down, but the Mike is really into
Mm. In,
the things right.
how do you see bringing other people into the fold of that? Because obviously during the Kickstarter campaign, there was, I can't remember whether it was like novels or short stories from sort of like minds outside of the core team. But how do you see sort of like, is it just knowing the writers, or is there anything that you will do in sort of like meetings or things like that to, because it will be a big part of giving this and progressing this lore forwards.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously part of it is that our company is infinitely small, like we are tiny. So it's often there's a lot of really good stuff. I mean, plenty of stuff in miniatures, kit bashing, painting that quite frankly you could put into a world-class book and be proud of. It's more sort of that we just don't have the resources to absorb it all. But in some ways that is good because it also means that the line between official and fan made is very very loose. Like the since we haven't gone so heavily into like named characters and lockdown stories, there's a lot of interpretation, and our narrators are unreliable. There's a lot of stores room for you to tell your story, make your bourbon look like you want. Like if we said that all the IRE troops,
Mm.
there is only one look, and they got only one type of weaponry and the symbols. But actually, Irish history is very rich, and you go from Fianna to the First World War. There's a massive variety of the inspiration you can draw on, and it would be shame if we said that no, you can only do it one way. All your ideas are rubbish. It's the uh, so how would somebody from outside approach it? I think we need to grow as a company, and and we would really like to have an online zine that we publish, whatever it's every 2 or 3 months. I don't know. That the people can contribute it, and we as a company is the review it, is the spread it out and go here. It's the new material. I think the for Mordheim, the Town Crier was a huge part of its longevity, and the it embracing the fan base right from the beginning, which nowadays in mainstream wargaming products are starting to be very rare.
Yeah, yeah, I think things have like sort of lost that. I want to find a better word than amateur-ish, but there's that sort of like in like sort of the early 2000s, late 90s. There's a very group of friends culture that seems to come across in both the writings and how people speak about that era. And it's just like everyone was just put in a room and they did things that everyone thought was fun, and
Yeah.
then these products just happen to come out of the other side of it
Yep.
versus yeah the more streamlined nature of
Yeah.
nowadays.
I mean that's how Brian Ansell originally set up the design studio. Is the which is funny because Brian has a deserved reputation of a truly fierce leader. But he did believe in creativity. Is the no matter what you say, it's the and my old comrades Trish, John Blanche, they all say that they have the infinite respect for Brian, despite him being a, shall we say, have rather sharp edges. But you also have to consider that he built this games company when the British the economy was on free fall, deep depression, and he clawed his company into a global success against that trend. You know how difficult it is to succeed on a luxury entertainment when the economy is going down. It shows that for good or ill, he was not a man. He was a formidable man, but he believed in creativity. Um, but of course, I see like if you look at the probably the best-selling book of the old school ever was Nigel Stillman's How to Build Wargaming Terrain.
Mm.
Unfortunately, a major company doesn't really release something like that anymore because, quite frankly, you can make a lot of money selling terrain. But I do want to Trench Crusade, since we are not a publicly listed company, we don't have any investors, and even if we would take any, we wouldn't give them that kind of control. Um, we want to bring that back. That you build your own cannon out of a I don't know, a plastic bottles. Cool. That's what we want to
Mm.
see. Yeah, we could probably make a cannon and sell it to you if we were bigger, but I don't I don't think it's the fun is not worth the price of admission. I think it's much more satisfying to me to see everything that the fan base comes up with.
Yeah, I think it's a skill that's sort of been been slipping out. Like those, so like in my early part of wargaming, the General's Compendium for Fantasy Sixth was
Mm,
like a massive part in showing how to make terrain and just sort of, I remember the ships being in there that
mm.
were just sort of like people had knocked together, and I
Yep.
think that's such a massive part, and it's very tactile in a world where obviously everything's becoming more digital,
Mm,
but making terrain out of scraps and like Pringles cans,
mm.
there is something very satisfying to it, and sort of like is a lesser hurdle, I think, for people if
Yep.
they just jump straight in.
Yep. And I think I at least I crave the tactile nature, like they've done a lot of studies, like how much better it is for the kids if they play with Legos than if they purely play digitally. Uh, that we are physical beings, so our connection to our brains is incredibly strong. The grip strength is one of the best indicators of the how well your brain survives aging. There is a huge amount of benefit doing tactile things. I think one of the reasons I only learned it later, but nowadays I love painting miniatures because it's so relaxing and meditative, and you have to focus on it fully. So anything that's bothering you, there is no room for it, because if you're painting, and it's all it's zen like. You're really like deep meditation. You get the same
Mm.
kind of out of it. Uh, when I started my career, our job was to get the armies painted as quickly as humanly possible so we could play test. So I never got to enjoy it until later time in life. Plus, I was surrounded by heavy metal painters, so anything you did looked so awful. You go to like hey Mike, because me and Mike we got very well along with Mike McVeigh, and then I
Mm.
said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm painting reflection on the ice, and you can see the battle scene that we're doing, so it's reflected on the eye, and I can't even see the eye." it's the so it could be a little bit demoralizing, even for the heavy metal people are lovely people. They were, Torben Schnorr was my roommate because we shared a flat. Just marvelous people, but can be a bit daunting when you are not as good yourself.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. What is there anything that you're currently painting and enjoy? This is just a complete sort of like fan question, but
Mm.
what is it that's currently on your painting desk?
Right now, I'm doing just variants of the heavy machine infantry because I really think that those came together. Like I really enjoy because they are big and chunky, which I love, and they are not so detailed that they break my brain. But if
Mm.
you want to build up like scratches and the paint symbols on them, you can. So you can modify how much challenge you want at any given time. It's the I really enjoy that. And then I have this huge dragon. It's the Ophidian dragon. It's sort of like a cobra that has like the four-way fangs.
Mm.
Uh, Heavenly Ophidian is the name of the dragon model. Beautiful model. That's my big project. I paint a lot of big miniatures because I run a multi year D&D campaign as the dungeon master, and it's a great motivator for painting because you want to have the monster of the session ready. It's the all the players are looking forward to it.
So what is the D&D campaign that you're running?
Oh, I'm my there's my because I lived in first UK when I was in Games Workshop, then I moved to North America. I was in Canada, uh, so I have a lot of friends from there. So I have a three people from North America. It's the playing with me, and the three people from Finland. So this way we keep our friendship going. All of absolutely love D&D. Uh, and we run it in the Forgotten Realms because one of my players, she's very absorbs like the scene. She's very visual person. And the Forgotten Realm has the advantage. There's tens and tens and tens of thousands of pieces of art in that world. And then I use miniatures, so she really gets into it because that's the how she gets into games. But yeah, we've been everywhere on the Sword Coast. We've been to the Mount Celestia, Nine Hells, the Icewind Dale, all over the place. We played for years. So uh, and I started my gaming hobby, my tabletop gaming hobby, with the D&D Red Box.
Right. Okay. So that was the first edition of D&D, was it, or was that the
I think
second
it's
edition?
second, the Red
Second.
Box with the classic and still absolutely stunning Elmore cover of the Red Dragon and the for warrior facing it. It's the unforgettable. It's the experience.
So is how you sort of have DM'd in D&D, is that something that you, that level of storytelling, something
Mm.
that we can think of coming to Trench Crusade and being applied in some sort of way for the campaigns?
Yeah, possibly. And of course, I was also a game master for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay for years, which really affected the development of the old world very heavily. A lot of the stuff that I ran in my campaign is to became canon in the Warhammer world. Um, but yes, I'm not going to talk too much about this yet, because the let's just put it this way that we have plans. Watch this space. We're not quite ready to reveal when it comes to that aspects of gaming. But maybe there is something in the future.
Yeah, but it's something that is, without revealing anything, something that might be on the mind of, because as you said, you wanted to introduce
Mm.
linked games and sort of
Yep.
campaigns with the current system, and then that
Yeah.
obviously will allow things to blossom into maybe a more into a wider setting in the
Yeah.
future.
Yep. Yep. There is also a lot of the appetite. Like the people want to know. They ask from me, what's the cost of packet of cigarettes in the new Antioch? What's the trade? How do people talk to each other? It's the how many what percentage of people can read? What do their shoes look like? How much do they cost? Uh, the Where do they go to buy like if they need uh, lines to keep the scurvy away. Where do they buy them? And the all this is actually really interesting, and it's the fleshes out the world. Of course, the war game uh, on tabletop
Mm.
is not about going to buy shoes. It's about fighting the battle. But the people are very interested about the larger world. So
Yeah,
we want to talk in one way or another more.
well, it's that internal consistency that you were saying about before. It's because even thinking down to it, with a bolt action rifle being 10 ducats,
Mm.
is, are we seeing that as representative of the smallest denomination within the world? Is a rifle that cheap, or is
Mm.
a packet of cigarettes some sub denomination of
Yeah.
ducats? I suppose.
Yeah, of course, when you use in a war game, you
Mm.
use money. It's a stand-in for points. It has to
Yeah,
be. In Mordheim, a lot of people were sort of confounded by the fact that I used a lot more RPG approach to the prices. Like a sword isn't inherently that much better than club, but
mm.
the club is in real life a lot cheaper than sword. But the in the Trench Crusade, I've gone much more with the costs that the match more or less their gameplay effectiveness. In the real life, the cost of a bolt action rifle to a packet of cigarettes probably would need some additional work. It's the because that's the way it is. But the I think people get that. I think people
Yeah.
understand that the Ducats are there to represent points and not the actual fluctuating economic value within new Antioch stock market.
Yeah, but it's good that I enjoy the fact that it's been thought about to that degree,
Mm,
that
mm,
the cost of limes has come up to keep
mm.
scurvy away. Because I mean, the heretic troopers, where are they getting the fields from? It just
Yeah.
boggles the mind, all of it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, but we are thinking about this. There's very interesting things like there are some of the fungi of the called devil's fingers, which taste and smell terrible, but grow really rapidly. So there's lots of like the ways we tie in the how the heretics are able to sustain their massive population. So we are thinking about these things.
no, it's good to hear. It's good to hear because I think it shows a deeper love for the game, and not that it's ever come across any different, rather than but contrasting to not even within gaming. Because I'm sure all the designers within companies love what they're working on. So I mean, they've got to for compared to the wages of other people's. But
Mm.
yeah, I think it's really nice to hear that there's such passion within the project, rather than I don't know retiring on the back of the Kickstarter, and
Yeah,
that
no,
just
I
being
mean, yeah, I mean, we obviously could have just will another Kickstarter and divide the profits, but we are not gonna do that. We do not believe people backed us in order for us to do that. I mean, we put enormous amount of work on top of a full-time job. We didn't expect to make a single penny, so we were willing to put 2 full years of work on top of another full-time job at the same time. Mike, I think 8 years of work, uh, because we love what we do. It's because, like I said, on paper, if Trench Crusade didn't exist and somebody gave you the pitch on piece of paper, everybody would say, "Yeah, I mean, great. But it's never gonna make a single penny." And
yeah.
that's what we thought.
No, it's I think fabulous to hear that such a like an indie studio
Mm.
is able to achieve that success nowadays with like on the flip side of the tactile digital sort of like preferring like the tactile analog stuff, the digital world allows this sort of success from a startup company. So it's good, like it gives and it takes, I suppose, as he said earlier.
Yeah.
But I think I'm out of sort of like standardized questions. So I think we'll leave it there rather than me dragging on about the costing ducats of a rifle versus cigarette packets. Thank you very much for coming on, Thomas.
No problem at all. Let's do it again at some point.
Love to. I'd love to. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time. See you in a bit.